The American fascination with the lost Dutchman's gold mine is unique in the nation's folklore. It is a story protected less by geography and more by the profound, intimidating silence of the Superstition Mountains in Arizona. Unlike other gold rushes, this legend did not spark a vast, transient population boom. Instead, it generated an enduring private obsession, drawing a small, constant trickle of highly focused, intensely solitary searchers into the harsh, uncompromising landscape. The legend's creator was Jacob Waltz, a German immigrant, mistakenly dubbed the Dutchman by the American public, who in the 1870s and 1880s periodically appeared in Phoenix with staggering quantities of high-grade gold ore, only to vanish again into the volcanic labyrinth of the superstitions. Waltz died in his small, dusty shack near Phoenix in 1991, succumbing to pneumonia following a massive flood. His death was unremarkable, hastened by old age and the rigors of the desert. However, his lasting legacy was not his wealth, but the historical and geographical ambiguity he left behind, a deliberately constructed puzzle. The official public record of his death is complete, but the secret of his mine was preserved in an artifact so mundane, so boring, that it remained unexamined for decades: the last ledger entry. The artifact was a sheet of thick, brittle paper, folded and secreted inside a worn, unlabeled accounting ledger found beneath Waltz's cot by the nurses who tended to him in his final hours. The ledger itself was a cheap, commercially available volume from a California supply house, filled primarily with rudimentary, almost illegible expense reports, purchases of beans, blasting powder, and mule feed. The sheet, torn from the center of the ledger, contained no traditional map. Instead, it bore three distinct written components, authored in Waltz's cramped, German-influenced script. A financial fragment. The top of the page showed the partial entry for what was clearly his last successful venture. Gold sold to F&B Phoenix, 40 pounds net. Exp mules, 17.00. Exp assay fee, 2.50. Remaining specie, blank. The amount of the return, the key to the mine's wealth, was never recorded. A geological drawing. The center of the sheet featured a series of highly simplified graphite sketches showing a specific cluster of geological formations within the superstitions. They were not drawn to scale or perspective, but focused on the geometric relationship between the formations, the angle of a distant peak, the precise shape of a unique basalt extrusion, and the alignment of three cholla cacti. A cipher text. The bottom was the most cryptic, a short, dense passage in broken English and German, detailing instructions that defied conventional cartography. When the shadow of the silent sentry meets the point of the golden hand, count the paces of the sun, and the lost lode sleeps beneath the heat. This document was Waltz's quiet testament. It was not a boast, but a final, necessary transmission of complex, coded information. The nurses, focused on his final comfort and the disposal of his few possessions, eventually sold the ledger to a local historian in 1905, who deemed it merely the ramblings of a feverish prospector. Dr. Elias Vance, our persistent scholar, now focusing on 19th century resource encryption, located the ledger in a dusty Arizona Historical Society vault. He immediately recognized the intentionality of the banality. Waltz, the secretive miner, used the most uninteresting medium, a failed accounting book, to conceal the map to his colossal wealth. The most profound realization was that the sketch was not a map of places, but a map of time and light. The notations silent sentry and golden hand were not geographical names, they were temporal markers, likely referring to the unique shadow cast by a specific geological spire during a specific hour of the day or season of the year. The last ledger entry was Waltz's final elegant expression of his methodology. He did not trust written coordinates which could be stolen. He trusted the geometry of the Earth and the Sun, which are universal, unstealable constants. His mind was protected not by locks, but by a celestial cipher. The absence of the final financial entry on the ledger sheet underscored the miner's ultimate commitment. The wealth was secured, the knowledge was passed on, but the final greedy tally of his success was deliberately left unrecorded. The gold remained unclaimable, preserved by the very silence and obscurity of the document itself. The historical inquiry now leaves the archival dust and moves to the rugged, sun-drenched landscape of the Superstition Mountains, seeking to reverse engineer the Dutchman's solar geometry and identify the silent sentry that guards the final secret.
The discovery of Jacob Waltz's last ledger entry transformed Dr. Elias Vance's quest from a search for historical legend into a detailed analysis of applied solar geometry. Waltz, the secretive Dutchman, had not used a compass and conventional coordinates. He used the Earth and the Sun as his non-transferable key. The key to the lost lode was locked within the deciphering of the phrase, "when the shadow of the silent sentry meets the point of the golden hand." The first challenge was to locate the silent sentry. This was clearly a unique, stationary geological marker whose shadow would serve as the guidepost. The Superstition Mountains are a labyrinth of sharp, volcanic spires and steep basalt cliffs. These formations are often visually similar, making conventional identification impossible. Dr. Vance focused his research on the subtle graphite sketches from the ledger entry. Waltz's drawing emphasized the geometric relationship of three specific peaks, viewed from a specific, fixed vantage point. Vance cross-referenced these sketches with late 19th century topographic maps and high-resolution digital terrain models of the Superstition Wilderness. After months of painstaking, solitary analysis in his lab, Vance identified a singular, isolated basalt column, a striking finger-like spire of stone located deep within a non-traversable section of the mountains. This spire was visually distinct from its neighbors only when viewed from a specific angle relative to the setting sun. Vance concluded this was the silent sentry. The sentry's identity provided the starting point. The golden hand provided the method. The golden hand did not refer to another peak or a physical marker. Dr. Vance hypothesized that the name referred to a specific, unique moment of optical phenomenon that occurs only once per year, the summer solstice. On the longest day of the year, at the moment of the sun's highest ascent, solar noon, the light floods the Superstition peaks. Given the geological composition of the region, rich in iron oxides, the granite and basalt surfaces briefly glow with an intense golden hue. This brief, perfect moment of maximum light was Waltz's golden hand, the temporal anchor for his map. The full cipher could now be read. On the summer solstice, the golden hand, when the shadow cast by the basalt column, the silent sentry, reaches its shortest, most precise length, that length is the measure of the distance, and the direction of the shadow's tip is the path. Waltz, the retired miner, used his knowledge of solar mechanics to create a system that was unstealable, non-reproducible, and infinitely durable. Any conventional gold seeker armed with a map would be looking for landmarks. Waltz knew his map required a specific day, a precise time, and a knowledge of solar trigonometry to unlock. Dr. Vance's challenge was to reverse engineer the shadow. He used historical climate data and computational models to retro-calculate the precise shadow length and direction of the silent sentry at solar noon on June 21, 1890, the last full summer before Waltz's death. The calculation was complex, requiring the known factors, the century's exact altitude and latitude, the sun's declination on the solstice, and the time zone corrections of the 1890s. The process was slow and methodical, an intellectual pilgrimage perfectly suited to the meditative nature of the superstition's enduring silence. The final calculation yielded a precise geographical coordinate, a point deep within a shadowed canyon, exactly 480 paces, approximately 440 meters, from the base of the silent sentry. The geometry of the desert had finally revealed the target, proving that Jacob Waltz was not a rambling prospector, but a brilliant, self-taught geometer who understood that the greatest lock is the geometry of the universe itself. The location was defined not by the presence of gold, but by the absence of light. The lost lode slept not beneath the heat, but beneath the perpetual shadow cast by the deepest, steepest wall of the mountain. The stage was set for the final analysis of the mountain's enduring silence.
The culmination of Dr. Elias Vance's historical and geometric pursuit led him to a single, precise location, a small, deeply shadowed alcove beneath a massive granite overhang in the most inaccessible reaches of the Superstition Mountains. This was the point where the shadow of the silent sentry met the geometric calculations of the Golden Hand. The location itself offered the final devastating proof of Jacob Waltz's sophisticated camouflage. It was not a hidden cave entrance or a visible seam of gold ore. It was a spot defined by its structural anonymity and its profound inaccessibility. The gold was protected not by a wooden door, but by a towering sheer wall of mountain. Dr. Vance, maintaining the historical integrity of his research, approached the site not as a treasure hunter, but as a surveyor. He found no evidence of recent human activity, no discarded tools, no footprints, and no modern geological surveys. The site was guarded by the mountain's own unforgiving nature, a long, difficult climb, minimal water sources, and the enduring silence that had consumed countless previous searchers. The gold, Dr. Vance concluded, was secured using the code of natural obscurity, much like the secrets of the previous stories. Geometric protection. The mine entrance was sealed with native rock, meticulously hidden within the natural shadow line of the alcove. Only during the single, brief moment of the summer solstice, when the sentry's shadow reached its calculated minimum, would a searcher know the exact point to begin looking. On any other day, the perpetual shifting mountain shadows would mislead and frustrate the searcher. The unclaimable wealth. Dr. Vance utilized advanced ground-penetrating radar, GPR technology, which was capable of looking beneath the surface without disturbing the site's silence. The GPR data confirmed a massive, highly dense subsurface anomaly consistent with a large cache of metallic ore or bullion, located several meters beneath the floor of the alcove. Waltz had not merely hidden the gold, he had buried it deep within the mountain's structure, sealing the entrance behind him with an engineer's precision. The discovery was thus dual. The geometric proof of the cipher was confirmed, and the physical existence of the colossal, unclaimable wealth was established. This presented Dr. Vance with the ultimate ethical choice, mirroring the conclusions of the greatest quiet scholars: the integrity of the secret versus the spectacle of the reveal. To announce the precise coordinates would unleash a violent, destructive chaos upon the Superstition Mountains, destroying the very historical silence that had preserved the secret for over a century. Dr. Vance chose to emulate the finality of Jacob Waltz's last ledger entry. He returned from the desert without disturbing the site, without removing a single pebble, and without publicly disclosing the final coordinates. The gold's true value, he realized, lay not in its monetary worth, but in its ability to persist as an enduring mystery. His final published work,
A meticulously detailed monograph on 19th century solar encryption in southwestern geological exploration laid out the entirety of Waltz's cipher, the calculation, and the method of the silent century, but the final coordinates were replaced with a single symbolic notation. The story of the lost Dutchman's mine concludes with a quiet, profound resolution. The gold is not lost, it is simply protected by the brilliance of an unsung geometer and the deep, eternal, enduring silence of the Superstition Mountains. The wealth remains unclaimable, serving as the perfect silent symbol of the American West's most enduring, untarnished secret.